Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Shifting Tides. Today, join me in welcoming Xane Daniel, an energy healer and a light worker. Xane channels the Hathors. Hathors are the extra-dimensional collective. Xane is also a comic book publisher and an author. Let's welcome Xane Daniel. Welcome, Xane. So good to have you on Shifting Tides.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And having read your story and obviously having talked to you, you are the perfect candidate for Shifting Tides, I must
All
say.
right.
So Xane, you have had a very interesting turnaround in your life. And I believe that the turnaround happened when you went on an ayahuasca journey. So
That's right.
Could you talk about it, and when did that happen, and
Sure.
what happened post that?
Yeah. Well, I almost want to talk a little bit about that because
Yeah.
really I like to say I was raised by scientists. So my father was an electrical engineer, and most of my uncles in the family were electrical engineers, and my grandfather was actually a chemist. And he, after World War II, he worked on triggers for the H-bomb for the US government. So
Okay.
I was definitely surrounded by science. That same grandfather in the late 70s had a personal computer, and very few people in the world in the late 70s had a personal computer. So he taught me how to program it when I was only 8 or 9 years old. So
Okay.
I was very, very much surrounded and integrated into a science-based life as opposed to a spiritual-based life.
Yeah.
And so in our home, we did not talk about spirituality because it was just stories. It wasn't even a topic of conversation,
Yeah.
and religion definitely wasn't. So I just looked at it as, I followed the various theories, the Big Bang and evolution, and we're just here for one life, and then we turn to mud, and then it's all over. And I believed that for the majority of my life. I believed that until I was around, I think it was when I was 42. So 40 plus years of believing that we were just one and done. Then to have an ayahuasca experience, it was in 2013. So, it's almost been 10 years since then. And that at that moment, I had a complete transformation. So to kind of lead you to that, it wasn't my intention to do ayahuasca.
Yeah, that was supposed to be my next question. That having had a science upbringing and that atmosphere in the house, what led you to having an ayahuasca journey?
Right. Yeah.
And
Go
and
ahead.
also, if you can explain as to what is ayahuasca, because not very many people are aware of it.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to. Okay. So I had no interest in doing any of the plant medicines. And of course, I grew up in the era of drugs are bad and you want to stay away from all of them. They are all just bad. In our country, Nancy Reagan was said, just say no to drugs. So I was pretty against all drugs, and all the way up until that moment for the most part. Now, my girlfriend at the time, her brother was kind of like a self-studied shaman. So he would bring us different things to try, and because everybody was doing it, I would reluctantly participate. And I didn't really enjoy the experiences. I didn't really feel like I was getting much out of them. I wasn't having any kind of awakening. I just said, oh, you're just making my brain do weird stuff, right? Like I didn't see it as this change. But one time he brought what he called oral DMT, because ayahuasca is dimethyltryptamine. That is the main ingredient in ayahuasca. And for anybody who's not familiar, dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, is produced by the brain anyway. And it's usually produced when we're dreaming and when we're dying. So DMT is the main ingredient in ayahuasca, and it's produced by the brain anyway. So it's usually produced when you are dreaming or when you are dying. And in the case of when you're dying, science likes to say, oh, okay, near-death experiences are caused by this hallucinogen that your brain produces when you at death.
Yeah.
So, but you know, at the same time, DMT, the body, since it produces it anyway, the body says, well, we're only supposed to experience it when we're dreaming and when we're dying. So if you try to ingest DMT by itself, the body says, what are you doing? Like, this shouldn't be here. We're not doing these two things. You're wide awake, man. So we're going to metabolize it so that you don't have a DMT experience. So in order to do ayahuasca, to actually ingest DMT, you actually have to have a second ingredient. And that second ingredient prohibits the body from being able to metabolize it so that you can have a DMT experience while you're awake. It's the only plant medicine / psychedelic that actually requires two ingredients. All of them are just one for the most part.
Wow.
So yeah, so he brought this to us, and he didn't call it ayahuasca. He just said, this is oral DMT, which is what ayahuasca is. It is taking DMT orally. And I don't know, I still yet to know if he didn't know that it was called ayahuasca or if he just chose not to tell us. Either way, he was an amateur at administering it. He'd never administered it before.
Yeah.
So he brought it, and so there were 4 of us, and he doled out the doses, and he totally got the dosage wrong, which is no surprise.
Yes,
right?
I know.
But it turns out that he underdosed us all. So I was the only one of the 4 of us that actually had a DMT ayahuasca experience. The other 3 members of our group didn't experience it.
And to do that without any supervision can be quite dangerous, right?
Of course. Yeah, because if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what the experience can be. Many shaman have been studying this for decades before they actually administer it to others. The story goes that in Peru, for instance, you can't become a shaman until the spirit of ayahuasca, which is the spirit, the entity that you can interact with. And you don't even always interact with the spirit of ayahuasca during an ayahuasca experience. So the spirit of ayahuasca will come and she will say, okay, you're ready to be a shaman, and I will teach you how to do it. And she proceeds to teach the people, the shamans, during an ayahuasca experience, what the rituals are, or how to handle it, or how to handle people, or whatever. So shaman are not allowed to administer ayahuasca until the spirit has come to them and said, okay, you're ready.
Okay.
So, and that process is all about raising your vibration, because in ayahuasca, you really open up your channel to the spirit world. And if you're not totally ready, then the channel that you might open up could bring in lower vibrational beings. So that ritual and that procedure, or whatever wording you want to use, is all about making sure that everybody's vibration is raised high enough that you're only going to bring in the spirit of ayahuasca, or maybe your guides, or a collective, or the angels, or on and on. So this happens. He brings this to us, and like I said, he underdoses us all. For me, I had had a couple of mushroom experiences through him. So as it began, I went, oh, this is kind of a familiar feeling, like this discomfort in your stomach. But then I'm closing my eyes, which is what you do on ayahuasca. Unlike most of the other psychedelics, you can walk around and interact with the world and see the world change and all of that. But in ayahuasca, you generally don't do that. You lay down, you close your eyes, and then you allow the experience to come to you. And when I did that, what I started to see was just a little bit of imagery, but mostly a voice came out of the darkness and started talking to me. And as soon as that voice started talking to me, the second that it did, I knew for a fact, just knew it, a deep inner knowing, that this voice was the voice of universal knowledge, and that it could answer any question that I have for it. And so at that very moment of that realization that I was talking to the voice of universal knowledge, I pretty much took all of my science knowledge, all my 42 years of science knowledge, and I said, don't care, because none of that stuff can explain what I'm experiencing right now. And so I just completely opened myself up to the possibility of whatever it had to say to me.
Oh my God. So it was completely like it was as if 42 years of your life was one, and post that is another lifetime, another
Exactly.
life, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you process all that? I mean, in the sense, obviously you did not have a guide, you did not have a mentor taking you through the journey. So how did you, there obviously was some higher power which was hand holding you at that time, right? So,
Yes.
so how did you process it on your own with the help of the higher power? And to how long did that take you?
Yeah, it took a long time, really, because it answered a bunch of questions for me as I just kept asking them. And I still believe that the experience was only 20 to 30 minutes, which a normal ayahuasca experience, when you have the full dosage, is 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours. So the light dosage only allowed me to get just a glimpse, really, of what was going on. But the voice was so clear and the answers were so uh, uh, um, tight. They were just, it didn't have to go on and on to answer my question, right? It was just, okay. The first question I asked was something like, so how should I live? Right? Like I just immediately, asked, how should I live, man? I don't understand. And it just said, well, you need to love more. It's just that kind of staccato, quick answers that then I could just keep asking little questions and they would give staccato, quick answers until the experience was over. But that all said, it was teaching me about past lives. It was teaching me that I was being greedy, that I didn't love enough, that I didn't, that I had a bigger mission and all this stuff. I still didn't understand it for years. It took years for me to really understand what it was trying to tell me at that time. But it allowed me to start walking down a new path where I could find out what it actually meant.
The voice that you heard in your first experience, the voice that, could you give a form or a name, or where was that download coming from? Could you figure that out as to who was talking to you, which plane or which level of consciousness was reaching out to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I noticed is that well, first of all, I didn't care. I didn't need to know that answer during that experience. I just wanted the answers to the questions I was asking. It didn't matter to me who I was talking to.
Okay.
It felt like I said, just it was a disembodied voice and it had universal knowledge. So it didn't matter to me at the time who was talking to me, because the voice was so intelligent. It knew so much. Like I said, I just knew it was the voice of universal knowledge. And then after the ayahuasca experience was over, I could continue to speak to this voice of universal knowledge at any time I wanted to. So I could kind of stop and go into a little bit of a meditative state, and I could ask this voice any question, and I would eventually get the answer. It wasn't as easy as when I was in the plant medicine trip, but if I could focus and I could take a pause, then I could get to that answer at the very least. And it was so it was a few years, like multiple years, before I did ayahuasca a second time. And during that time, I was trying to ask it, hey, who is this? Who am I speaking with? And usually the answer I got was, it doesn't matter. What matters is the information. What matters is the healing. And I came to realize that, yeah, we like to put things in little boxes. We like to label things and identify things. It makes us feel safe. It makes us feel comfortable. And this is a 3D limitation. So anytime I get an opportunity, I try to help people realize that it isn't important, and that is actually a primitive kind of yearning and desire to be able to get a label for these beings or being. And that you can tell by the vibration, you can tell by the type of information you're receiving, that you don't actually need to know the identity of the entity or being. All you need to know is this high vibrational information? Is this high vibrational healing? And if you can feel that, that's all you need.
So since you started hearing this voice, what I'd like to ask you is, what were you doing with your life at that time? And how did that change? I mean, did you pursue something else post that after you started listening to these instructions or downloads?
Yeah, so I was a producer in the video game industry. When my grandfather introduced me to the computer and taught me how to program it when I was so young, I was so young that I loved video games, right? That
Yeah.
was my childhood passion. So I continued, and creativity was a huge part of my life. I really loved to be creative. So I pursued that industry as a career, and I was able to become that producer, executive producer sort of thing. So I was definitely still in that world when I had that ayahuasca experience. But even before that, I was starting to get to the point where, okay, I feel like this isn't going to be going on for the rest of my life. I feel like I'm going to be switching to something else. At the time, I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew that it was eventually going to happen. So I was open-minded to any other opportunities or possibilities that might come. And so once I began speaking to that voice of universal knowledge, even during, I could do it at work. It did start to make me go, well, there's a lot more going on here than I ever possibly knew. And the satisfaction that I was getting over having a nice house and having a steady paycheck and doing the simple things in life made me start to go, you know what, there's more. And
Yeah.
I don't know what that more is, but
Yeah.
I'm open to it.
Now, you said that this voice obviously was continuous and it was coming to you. But at some point, you also realized that it was coming from the Arcturians and the Hathors, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
one, if you could just tell us, what are these dimensions? And what information did they start giving you, which not only impacted you, but also impacted your environment or other people around you,
Right. Yeah. So that process came about because I write and publish my own comic book series called Righteous. And this comic book series is about a spiritual awakening. But when I started writing it, it was only just a few months after I had been at the retreat and had those experiences happen. And I suddenly got very motivated to create this book. And I hired artists right away. I just went for it. The information that I started to write in the comic book series, which was purely entertainment based, was, it turns out, very prognosticative. So it told the future, and it started telling me all kinds of things about myself, but I didn't even realize it at the time. I just thought I was writing a cool story. So it was because of the comic book, I was trying to figure out a way to get it released to more people. I wanted more and more people to read it because I knew that something really great was happening. But when people did read it, they were starting to, it was a catalyst for awakening. So I was showing it to people who were not awake in any way. And then they would read it and they would go, what did you just do to me? Things are different now. And I was in, so ultimately, as a result of this, I knew that it had something special, and I wanted to try to get it out there as much as possible. And that led me to a guy who is a light worker coach. I didn't even know what I was a light worker. I thought that I was just writing the story and that I could talk to these voices. I didn't put it all together yet. Okay. And as he started to kind of train me, he trains people to help them figure out what their own gifts are. Not teaching me Reiki, not teaching, all the other teachable modalities. His whole thing is about helping you discover who it is you're talking to, what it is that they're teaching you, and how to do whatever it is your life mission and purpose. So it was that experience that led me to all those discoveries. So I discovered that the main collective that I'm working with are the Hathors, but I've been an Arcturian, I've been an Andromedan, I've been a Pleiadian, and all these multiple lives, all this stuff all kind of plays together in creating the spiritual gifts that I have. And it was so the Hathors, in case nobody's familiar with them, because they're a little bit less known, certainly in the US, is they're another collective. They're another extra dimensional collective, very similar to the Pleiadians or the Arcturians. And they were incarnated here on earth during Egypt's golden age. And there is actually a temple in Egypt called the Dendara Temple that is completely dedicated to the Hathors. And if you look up the Hathors online, you can see the carvings and what the Hathors looked like. They were somewhat different than us. They were similar in many ways, but they have kind of different ears and head shapes and things like that. Well, I was incarnated among them during that time, and that's where I learned how to do my main modality, which has been the foundation upon which I have built many different things or understood many different modalities that are still revealing themselves to me. Like every month I feel like, oh, I can do this too, and I can help people in this way. Oh, wow, this is great. So it's been just this unbelievable discovery and unbelievable journey of all of these different sorts of things.
A question that comes when you're telling me this is that usually anybody can be thrown when such transformation or such big changes start coming into your life. And because it is beyond human comprehension, or even beyond our intelligent analytical mind. So one, who did you turn to in the human form? Who did you turn to for asking for assistance or asking for clarity? Who was it that was guiding you? Or you completely, fully surrendered and relied to this knowledge which was flowing through you?
My personality is very unusual, I'm finding, and that is that I default to a high vibrational emotion called excitement. So it's very, very easy for me. If nothing's going on at all, I can quickly get to excitement. And I teach about, the emotional frequency chart or the map of consciousness by David R. Hawkins. I teach and talk about all the different emotional levels. And it's really important for people to discover where it is that they default to. Do they default to frustration? Do they default to fear? Do they default to disappointment? Do they default to unworthiness? Or do they default above that to acceptance, to enthusiasm, optimism, excitement, gratitude, unconditional love? Because where you are on that chart determines how you experience everything in your life. I didn't say, oh no, everything that I've ever known is wrong. This is terrible. Oh no, everything, I have no idea what's going on. I'm afraid. Oh no, I don't know what I'm going to ever do. This is all going to be a disaster. I'm worried. No, I was excited. All I wanted to do now was to say, wow, oh my gosh, I was a kid wishing that I was a superhero. And now I can talk to voices beyond me. Maybe I am a superhero. Like I just jumped to that. I looked at everything with joy and excitement and couldn't wait to explore the next thing. So I didn't really actually need to go to anybody. And I had no mentors who understood anything that I was experiencing. I didn't even know the word for channel. I didn't know that I was channeling information. I just thought I was talking to a voice, and I thought, well, if I tell too many people about this, they're probably going to think that I'm actually like insane, that I should be committed. So I do have to be a little bit careful about who I say that I'm talking to a voice with. But I could tell some people in my life, and they were very interested in it. And some of them were kind of interested and would ask questions like, oh, could you ask the voice this question? And then I would give them the answer, and they were kind of excited about it. Notice I just called it the voice. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So but I did discover the channel Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, and that individual, that the channelings that he receives, and I never talked to him. I just watched his stuff on YouTube and whatever. That really resonated with me, because his main tenet is, if you follow your highest excitement, then you will be led down a synchronistic path. Well, I already knew I was always excited all the time. Mm-hmm. So this guy really spoke to who I was. And I went, oh, well, that's exactly what's happened. I was excited about video games. And so I got a 22-year career that led me to a great relationship. And then that led me to an ayahuasca eye-opening experience. Okay, I followed my highest excitement, and it led me to this incredible thing. I followed my highest excitement with the comic book, and it led me to discovering my gifts gifts and the entities that I work with. So it just all fell into place and made it so clean and clear. I didn't have to go through the dark night of the soul. I went through the excited day of the life. and that's really
Wonderful.
been everything that I followed.
Yeah, because in my experience, Xane, especially talking to so many people across the world for shifting tides, usually what has come through, and with regards to even my personal experience, I've come through is that you've got to go through the dark night of the soul. And that is like a given. So it appears to you in various forms. It can come to you in terms of a serious calamity, or it can come in terms of your serious illness or a breakdown, or whatever. So you're one of the fortunate ones. So obviously at a very young age, it came to you that you are the chosen one to be able to bring out your latent talents and skills, which you're probably carrying from other lifetimes, and you've got to bring it out full on in this lifetime without having to really break down or having to suffer. So no time wasted, no time wastage. So just bring on as much as you can for you to bring out and help humanity, I would say. I mean, this is my way of interpreting what you've just spoken about.
Yeah.
And so that brings me to this question is, since last year, the world is going through this very challenging time. And there are various interpretations to it. One, of course, is what is visible, what is evident. And that is that people are suffering because of the virus, and physicality has been impacted, and people are dying, or they are ill, or and because of that, everyone is locked up and they can't work, and so on and so forth. It just is getting into a very bad ripple effect. So, but on the other hand, there is a spiritual interpretation to it as well, that there is a misalignment of forces, and somewhere human beings have not really respected and regarded what had been given to them by creation, by the higher power. And that's why this complete breakdown has happened. So with regards to your downloads or the information you're getting from the universal knowledge, what is it that you have received vis-a-vis the current situation in the world? If at all you've received anything.
Yes, I have. And it's interesting because it is a little bit counter to what you just said, in that this has happened because we weren't in the right mindset, or that this has happened because we've done something wrong as a society, as a species, that has created this disappointing experience, or this painful experience, or this unwanted experience. That's not true at all. And it's happening to us for us. It's happening to us for our benefit, not as like a punishment, or not as like we deserved it, or anything like that. Everything is happening exactly as it's supposed to, and it always does. The pain and the misery and the suffering is unfortunate, but it's what we all signed up for. It's all part of our awakening experience. And the reason that we're here, we incarnated here to at this time, was to witness it, because we already know what happens. We are multidimensional beings. We come from a place where there is no such thing as time. This has already occurred. This is like going back and watching a reenactment of a historical event. For us, we have already transcended and ascended to the 5th, to the 7th, to the 9th, and beyond dimensions. We are here as tourists visiting this experience just so we can see what happens, and to enjoy it, and to feel the emotions of misery and disappointment and fear and all the things that come with it, but also to relish the experience and the transformation that we're all going through as a 3-dimensional moving to 4th-dimensional species and society. So it isn't anything that's gone wrong. It's everything is going right.
I see. Okay. So, and also, I would like to now come to Higher Self Expo, which you're currently
Yes.
working on. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of the event. I'm
Yeah.
it's a real honor to be a part of this beautiful collection of beautiful beings and eminent speakers who are coming and sharing their experiences. So one, I'd like to ask you, how did it come about?
Mhm.
And two, what would you like to achieve from that?
Oh, awesome. These are great questions. And it segues so well from what I just said, because it comes from COVID. The Higher Self Expo would not exist if it weren't for the COVID
Yeah.
disaster, right? Because I had intended, and was very much on my journey to travel about and to speak at conferences and expos and festivals to, spread the knowledge that I've been learning, to do group healings and help as many people as I possibly could. Well, it didn't take very long before that stopped because we couldn't gather. So now I went, all right, now what am I going to do? I need another solution. I need another thing. I need to, keep this going. I can't just let this, languish. So and at the time I was working with a coach who was talking about, knowing other people in your peer group. And I realized that I wasn't really associating with a lot of other light workers. I was kind of on my own journey. So I kind of put the two together and said, well, I would like to get to know more people in this space. I would like to, share knowledge and network with them and see what kind of opportunities we could provide each other. So, okay, it makes sense to put together something where I could take advantage of both of those situations. So what about an online only conference? Because of course, on location conferences are very complicated and difficult for people to attend, even when there isn't a COVID crisis going on. So, okay, so let's go ahead and put something like this together. I got a few people who were interested in helping me with it. And within just a couple of months, we went from no Higher Self Expo existing, which was in March of 2020 that I even came up with the concept. And we had our first event in May, and we had, 100 people watching, which we were just blown away and super excited by. But now here we are in the event comes up in July of 2021. So it's not even totally been, much longer than a year. And this is already our fourth event. So we really packed them in during the COVID times. And this one, as you know, is 24 straight hours with 36 speakers across the globe, and going to different hosts in Australia, hosts in Europe, as it goes around, as the sun goes around the planet. So it's really beautiful, and a great honor to be involved in something like this. And it might be, as far as we know, the first time that a lightworker like conference has ever been a 24-hour event. We might be setting history. I'm not totally sure, but it feels like it.
Yeah. And what would you like to achieve from that? What is the takeaway for people from Higher Self Expo?
Okay. So I like to break it down. If I step back into my journey or my mission on this planet, it's threefold. One is to help wake up the masses that are not even starting to wake up. And that's something I'm doing with the comic book Righteous, because it has that effect on people. I'm also working and getting that turned into a TV show, a live action TV show. And we're in the process of doing that. The pilot script has been written and so on. So I know that is part of that journey. So here I am. Leg number one, I'm helping the masses wake up. Leg number two, I help people overcome negative entities, spirit attachments, or possessions. This has come about as a result of working with lots of different folks and discovering that it's very easy for me to remove negative entities, but they'll come back because people have work that they need to do. And so I help people in that process to not only remove them, but help them do that work so that they never come back again. So that is helping. So, we've got this one where we're helping people who have never been awakened. In this case, now in the negative entity one, these are generally people that have begun their awakening process, but they've run into some problems. They've run into some, like I was saying earlier, I had channeled this being, or I had, this lower vibrational being because I wasn't high vibrational enough. This is where I'm able to help people step into their power, step into their vibration, change their mindset, and look at themselves in the world differently. So that's the two. So we're talking about brand new people somewhere in the middle. And then the Higher Self Expo is to help those who have already gone through a lot of their awakening experience and they want more. They want to expand more. They are maybe not burdened so much. They are just excited about what else they can do, how else they can help society, their community, their family, whatever it is that their mission is. Then hopefully I can introduce them to other light workers and other amazing spiritual beings that will inspire them, and it will cause them to reach out to them and say, hey, how can you help me on my journey? And so it's an opportunity for the light workers, and in this case, the scientists, because our theme is where science meets spirituality in this particular expo, to be able to interact with followers and new people and see how they can inspire each other.
Yeah. It's a question that came while you were speaking. Being a light worker, or at least on the path of evolving, or I would say awakening, or at least discovering yourself, or at least rediscovering or recalibrating yourself. One is in a minority. Because you're surrounded in an environment which is, I would say, three-dimensional. We are in a lower vibrational environment. So when you are walking this path and you find yourself always in isolation because you're in a minority, so how does one cope with it? And what are the ways to always self-motivate yourself to come back to what your real essence is and what your real role for yourself and the world is? How does one make that transition on a daily basis? It's like a daily battle,
Okay, right. Well, there's like 25 answers to that question. But one of them, I go back to that default thing I was talking about earlier. What emotion do you default to? Because if you default to battling, like you just suggested, I've got a battle with low motivation, or I've got a battle with loneliness, or I've got a battle with these lower vibrational emotions, then you're going to struggle no matter what you are, no matter how you think of the world, no matter whether you're a minority or a majority, it doesn't matter. If you're defaulting to a lower vibrational negative emotion, then you're going to struggle. So the first thing that I say you really need to do is figure out how to move up that chart and be in acceptance, be in optimism, be in excitement, be in gratitude, be in unconditional love. And when that happens, then it doesn't really matter, again, whether you're an isolationist or you're surrounded by like minds. It doesn't matter at all. So then we go through some of the other thoughts that you were saying there. One thing that's really nice is that we have this incredible thing that's been brought to us by technology, that we can be friends with people all over the world.
Yeah.
Right now, you're in India and I'm on the West Coast of the United States. And we've had a couple of conversations, and I consider you a dear friend now. And we didn't ever have to meet in person. So that's the beauty, of this technology. Then there's other things too, because if we look at this world in the way that everything's going wrong, it's very 3D, this isn't really what I want. Look at how the world's being destroyed. We're killing animals, we're killing nature, we're doing all this destruction to the world. This is all a screwed up mess, and people in charge are filled with fear. And you could just find all the flaws with everything that is going on. And then you could go into a survival-based mindset. And that survival-based mindset is, I don't like this. I want this to go away. I want the world to be better. This sucks. And that is you trying to find a solution, because that's what you're evolved to do. These 3D humans have survived because they're trying to handle the difficult worlds that they find themselves in. They've got to survive the saber-toothed tigers, or the injury, or whatever it is that they're dealing with. But when you're in that mindset, it is very limiting, and you are embracing your three-dimensionality. I talk about the news. If you watch the news is actually the How I Could Die show. We tune in to the How I Could Die show so that we could try not to die. And that is a very survival-based mindset, because what does the How I Could Die show tell you? It tells you the fires and the murders and the diseases and all the things that are going wrong with the world. Why would we care about that? It's because we're tuned into that survival-based, lower vibrational mindset. And so we're tuned in and going, okay, so what do I have to do? Oh, okay, I got to make sure I don't do that. I got to make sure I don't do that. And you can get so wrapped up in that, and you can be so worried about how everything's going that you don't get to enjoy life anymore. So the How I Could Die show is useful, but it shouldn't be loved. It shouldn't be surrounded by a lot of your attention.
So what I understand, Xane, is obviously you are looking at a very hopeful future. You are looking at a hopeful future. Where do you, with your instinct and intuitiveness, where do you see the world or yourself 5 years from now or 10 years from now?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know, and it's not important. What's important is that I know that amazing things are going to continue to happen. I know we're going to continue to awaken. I know that it's all going to go according to plan. I don't have an agenda. I don't have anything where something needs to happen by this time or any of that. Like I said, I'm here for the journey. I signed up for this life experience so that I could witness it unfold. And in any time that I want it to happen in a certain way, then what am I really tapping into there? I'm tapping into that 3D survival mindset. The way to tap into that higher vibrational mindset is to love everything exactly as it is. I want to take you through a quick example. If I had a doorway right here, right now, and I open that door, and through that door, you could see a fifth dimensional society. It is a utopian society. We're no longer killing each other. We're no longer destroying the earth. No animals are being abused. Nobody is just wanting for anything. Everything is this kind of ideal situation. Would you want to step through that door?
Of course.
Of course you would.
Of course.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes. So you step through that door, and then what would happen is you would find that you were still back in this three-dimensional reality, and you would turn and look at me and you would say, "What, Xane, you lied. You know, we're not in the fifth dimensional." And I would say, "Well, it was a trick question. What you need to do is to look at that door and say, I don't need to go through that door. I love this 3D reality exactly as it is. It is perfect. And everything is happening exactly as it's supposed to, because I created it as source. We all did, so that we could have this experience, so that we could witness this, so that we could be a part of this. Why do I want to skip ahead? Because my post-life experience is kind of actually like that fifth dimensional reality. I'm here for a reason, and I'm going to embrace that reason for whatever that purpose is. And I don't even need to know what the exact purpose is. And guess what? You're now in fifth dimensional consciousness.
I see. Okay. I see. That's interesting. That's a very interesting perspective. So in the end, Xane, what is that one message you would like to give to everybody?
Oh, well, I think we just nailed it, right? I think we just talked about it. Love everything exactly as it is, because you created it as source. You created this world exactly as it is, and you are here to witness your creation. And you've forgotten that you are the creator. You've forgotten that you have ultimate power intentionally. You intentionally did it, because what if you came here with unlimited power? You would just go, oh, these people are suffering. Now they're not. Oh, the dolphins are being killed. Now they're not. Oh, there's plastic in the ocean. Now there's not. And then within 10 seconds, you go, oh, okay, now I'm bored. There's nothing more to do. That was dumb. So you've got to go back, rewind, and then go, okay, I have to forget that I'm the ultimate power. I have to forget that I am infinite, that I can't die, because dying is one of the more motivating experiences. It reveals all of our emotions. All of our emotions come from the fact that we can die. So we need to believe that we can in order to actually experience them. Otherwise, we wouldn't take them seriously.
True.
So I've got to go here, forgetting that I'm the creator, forgetting how powerful that I am, so that I can have this incredible experience. So go ahead and have this incredible experience. That's why you're here.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What a beautiful message. Thank you, Xane. Thank you. It was such a delightful conversation, and it answered a lot of my own questions.
Wonderful. Yay, that's what we like.
Yes, my own questions. And we too started with Shifting Tides, thanks to COVID. Shifting Tides started in March of last year, and we are in season 2. And the kind of people who are coming on the show is giving so much of a clarity and so much of an insight into why are we here and where are we heading, and what is our role in this entire quagmire, as you may call it.
Right. Quagmire is a great word. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And thank you so much, Xane. It was lovely having you. And I'm looking forward to the Higher Self Expo next month. Wish you all the very best. Talking to Xane brought to light some very important key points. If you have accumulated good karma in your past lives, then there is no need for anyone to really go through a struggle or to actually have breakdowns in this lifetime to be awakened. Xane is obviously a chosen one by the higher selves to be able to bring out his latent skills and talents and all the knowledge he probably had in his previous lifetimes to bring out for the betterment of society in this lifetime. What a beautiful gift. Thank you for joining us in this delightful conversation. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. And look forward to yet another inspiring story in our next episode. Goodbye for now.